just did this, and for some reason it didn't work out. I'm not sure what happened, so I'm doing it again. The title is called Check the Map, and we're going to Judges chapter 7, and we're talking about Gideon and the battle against Midian. Let's start. Then Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the people with him got up early and set up camp by En-Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them. By Gibeath Moreh in the valley, Adonai said to Gideon, "There are too many people with you for me to hand Midian over to them, because I don't want Israel to be able to boast against me. We saved ourselves by our own strength. Therefore proclaim to the people, anyone who is anxious or afraid should go back home, while we stay here on Mount Gilead." 22,000 returned, but 10,000 stayed. Went from 32,000 to 10,000, and that still is too many. Adonai said to Gideon, "There are still too many people. Have them come down to the water, and there I will screen them for you. If I say of anyone, 'This one is for you,' he will go with you. And if I say, 'This one is not for you,' he won't go with you." So he brought the people down to the water, and Adonai said to Gideon, "Put to one side everyone who laps up water with his tongue, the way a dog does, and put the other side everyone who gets down on his knees to drink." 300 lapped, putting their hands to their mouth. All the rest of the men got down on their knees to drink water. Adonai said to Gideon, I will use the 300 men who lapped the water to save you. I will hand Midian over to you. Let all these others go back home. So they took the provision and the shofars of the people. Then he went all the men of Israel away to his tent, but the 300 men he kept. Now, God don't do math the way we do it. The way we do math, it's 1 + 1 = 2. The way God does math is my one can defeat your thousands and get the victory. The camp of Midian was in the valley below him. That night Adonai said to him, "Get up and attack the camp, because I have handed it over to you. But if you are afraid to attack, go down with your servant Purah, and after you hear what they are saying, you will have the courage to attack the camp." So with his servant Purah went down to the outpost of the camp. Now Midian, Amalek, and all the others from the east had settled in the valley as thick as locusts. Their camels were beyond counting. This was a massed multitude. This was a lot of military personnel that God said 32,000 is too many to come up against them. 10,000 is too many to come up against it. I'll take 300 and go up against them. So Adonai's math is, like I said, is different than ours. Our math is if we got enough people, if we have enough skilled people, if we have enough weaponry, we can pretty well hold our own. The guy says, "Nope, that's not my math. My math says I can come at you with less than you have, and I can come at you with men who have less skills than you do, and I can come at you with less weapons and still defeat you." Like the sand on the seashore. Gideon got there just as a man was telling a comrade about a dream he had. "I just now dreamt that a loaf of barley bread fell into the camp of Midian, came to the tent and struck it so hard that it overturned the tent and knocked it flat." His comrade answered, "This can only be the sword of Gideon, son of Joash, a man of Israel, God has given Midian and all his armies into his hands. God was showing Midian, you're going to get defeated with weak. I can take the weakest army and turn it to my glory, for my glory, by defeating an army of supposedly powerful men. Because you know you're not going to take a loaf of bread and throw it down and it's going to knock anything flat. But you put it in God's hands. It can feed 5,000, but it also can flatten the tent. It can also flatten an army. We have to get it, and that's me too, and me too. We have to understand that God, the battle is the Lord's, not ours. We get stressed out. We get, we get stressed. We get, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. We need to learn. I'm talking to me. I'm talking to everybody. We need to learn to not let anxiety guide us. We need to learn that it's not meant for us to be strong enough to fight the battle. What it's meant for us to do is trust God. Because if he puts a loaf of bread in our hands, and whatever way he guides it, it can either feed 5,000 or it can destroy an army. If he puts a shofar in our hands, it can either bring joy because people hear the sound of victory, or it can destroy an army. If he puts a vessel into our hands, a pot into our hands, it can either be used to fill, to refresh us, or it can be used to destroy an army. If he puts a light into our hands, a flashlight, anything, it can either be used to help people get through darkness, or it can be used to destroy the darkness. But we have to start saying, this is our map. But we're going to learn to use God's map. When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he fell on his knees and worshiped. Then he returned to the camp of Israel and said, "Get up, because Adonai has handed Midian army over to you." He divided the 300 into 3 companies. He put in the hands of all of them. Now this is what they used. This is what the weapons that they used to come up against this army. Listen. All of them. Shofars and empty pitchers with torches in them. That was it. That was the weapons right there. That was the weapons. That was the weapons that God had Gideon to use with those 300 against that army that was humongous to defeat them. And you know what gets me? It gets me. We sin today. We read these all the time. And we still think, God, this is too much for me. But you know what? It's not too much for him. Then he said to them, "Watch me and do what I do." Then I set the edge of the camp. When I get to the edge of the camp, whenever I do, you do the same. When I and everyone with me blow the shofar, then you blow your shofars all around the whole camp and shout for Adonai and for Gideon. Gideon and the 100 men with him arrived at the edge of the camp a little before midnight, just after they had changed the guard. They blew the shofars and broke in pieces the pitchers that were in their hands. All 3 companies blew the shofars, broke the pitchers, and held the torches in their left hand, keeping their right hand free for the shofars they were blowing, and they shouted, "The sword for Adonai and for Gideon." Then as every man stood still in place around the camp, the whole camp was thrown into panic. Now, I'm assuming that Midian's army were skilled men. Maybe even some of them were skilled for years. So you would think a shofar or a trumpet would not scare them. And you would think that, which I'm assuming most military does, they would, even if there was fear, that training would kick in. But like I said, when you do your own math, nothing's going to happen. But when God steps in and he starts using his math, there's always victory. With everyone screaming and crying and trying to escape, Gideon's men blew their 300 shofars, and Adonai caused everyone in the camp to attack his comrades. And the enemy fled beyond Beit Shittah near Sirah as far as the border of Evel Micah by Tabbath. Then men of Israel were summoned from Naphtali, Asher, and both regions of Manasseh, and they pursued Midian. Gideon sent messengers through all the hills of Ephraim with the message, "Come down and attack Midian and capture the rivers before they get as far as the Beit Barah and also the Jordan." So all the men of Ephraim came together and seized the rivers as far as Beit Barah and the Jordan. They also captured 2 chiefs of Midian, Oreb and Zeev. They put Oreb to death at the rock of Oreb and Zeev at Zeev's winepress. Then as they kept pursuing Midian, they brought the heads of Oreb and Zeev to Gideon, who had crossed to the far side of the Jordan. Whatever army you're facing today, and I'm talking about all of us, that army is not big enough or strong enough to come up against Yahweh. Not one army. If God is for us, who can be against us? No army, no situation, no devil, no demon, no witch can come up against us. As long as we understand that we need not to step on God's toes and try to do our math to get to the solution, but let God do his math and we'll always have victory. Now I'm finished and I want to thank all of you. If anybody who come and listen, it'll still be on here for people to come in and watch.